May 15th, 1992, and we're interviewing Aunt Vivian. Dun
Well,
dun dun!
is that picking up your voice?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I was going to tell you that any of these things that you heard before, why, don't stop me because I like to, I like to tell them so well, and I'd like to hear myself tell it again.
We like to hear them too.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm going to start out with my sister Violet. We were always so close, and for uh, 25 years, well, over 25 years, we slept together and double dated together, and just everything. We went places together all the time. And but back a long time ago, when if you weren't married when you reached 25, you were considered an old maid. And nobody wanted to be an old maid. So Violet wasn't married at 25. She'd had a boyfriend, but he had diabetes and died went into a coma because he got off his diet and died at an early age. And so she, 25 rolled around and she wasn't married. So I decided to play a joke on her. And they laugh about old maids, getting a cat or a canary to keep them company in their old age. So I wrote a long letter, and we bought, my boyfriend said quite often he'd lower the window at the top, and that maybe a sparrow would fly in, and he said, and that's what we was hoping for, but it didn't. We had to buy a canary at the, I think at Woolworths, and it had, I think you had to put water in it or something, then blow on it, it would sing and warble, and so we boxed that up and sent that to her. It got next to her. She did, it made us so mad. And she saved that and sent the same letter, my letter actually, and back to me when I reached 25 and wasn't married.
Now, how old were you when you married Uncle Dave?
Oh, I don't know. I was in the 30s back in 1940.
So you were in your 30s?
I don't know for sure. In fact, we was married for a while and kept it a secret, just for fun. Married in Miami. He at the time he was managing a coke plant and.
What plant?
Coke plant.
You didn't know that? Yeah, he did. He was managing the coke plant. I'd go to the soda fountain. I didn't know whether to order a Pepsi or whether to order a Coke for a while.
Now, was Go-Go in the Pepsi business at that time?
Yeah.
He was already?
Yeah, he was already in there. You mean you think I should have refused Dave?
So you married the enemy? No.
Because he was in the Pepsi business. Yeah,
so
they were competitors there for a while, because Dave knew about the bottling business,
Why did you go to Miami to get married, and why did you keep
his
it a
boss,
secret?
the one that owned it, she just owned for the city of Marion. Didn't have a large territory like your dad.
Aunt Vivian, why did you guys go to Miami to get married, and why didn't you tell anybody?
Well, we was just on a trip. I've forgotten that. Oh, and Mrs. Morrison was with us. She's the one that owned the plant, and she had some friends down there she wanted to see. In fact, one of them stood up with us at the Christian church when we was married.
So none of your family was there when you got married?
Uh-uh.
You eloped?
No, just Mrs. Morrison, and then this friend of hers.
You eloped?
Did we elope?
Uh-huh.
No, I don't suppose so.
But nobody knew you got married.
Huh?
Nobody knew.
We kept it secret for a little while, just for funnies. Oh, Mrs. Morrison, of course, the boss, she knew about it. Well, I didn't get in there to be talking about myself.
We want to know about you. How'd you meet Uncle Dave?
Pardon?
How'd you meet Uncle Dave?
How did I meet him? At an open house at Dr. Burkhart's house.
Was it love at first sight? Did you
It
say?
was on New Year's, you know, when they had open house, and I met him.
Was it love at first sight? Did you think he was pretty cute?
I don't know. I doubt that.
Man, Vivian!
But there's love from there on, I guess. I don't know. So I started to tell you about Violet. I love to ride horses. I don't think she enjoyed it quite as much, but I'd promise her so many things, to wash and dry the dishes and everything, if she'd just go with me to catch the horses. And we was living down at Creel Springs at the time that this happened. And we lived across the street from the orphanage, and there's 5 of us, and you wouldn't know whether our house was the orphanage or whether across the street was the orphanage. So many of us, 5, you know. Anyway, I talked her into going with me to catch the horse to go for a ride. And my dad had a flour mill. That was the business he was in. You don't hear of flour mills anymore. They handled all kind of grain. And they didn't have automobiles then either, and he had a horse with a dray, they called it. A wagon, you know, that this horse picked up stuff and delivered it. And anyway, we was too little to put a saddle on. Never had one to fit us anyway. It's one, you know, for grown up. And but this day we tried to put it on, but we wasn't big enough or strong enough, you know, to tighten the belly button, the belly belt, they called it. And I guess we must have been a mile from home whenever this saddle started slipping. Slipped clear underneath the horse's belly. And I say belly because that's what they said all the time about when they was talking about a horse. And I tell you, the neighbors, after we had to go back home, of course, and the neighbors were just dying of laughing with us two up on top of this horse, you know, and the saddle underneath. But she's gentle. Yeah, I guess she's worn out, probably, working all week. Any other spirited horse, I guess, would have run off with us. But that's about the end of that story, was how the neighbors was laughing, looking out the windows, or on the porches or something, laughing at us.
Tell us about the story when you guys were horseback riding and the horse ran to the stable.
Yeah, well, that comes next. I was going to tell you that, I think it was this same horse that was real gentle, that she wouldn't pay any attention, though, to what we said. I mean, if we said, whoa, I guess horses have sense enough to know us as kids. If we'd say whoa or something, I don't know whether for sure whether we had a bridle on her or not. I guess we did, maybe, but she wouldn't always whoa. And I told Violet she's headed for the stable, and I knew there wasn't room enough for us to go through the door, and the horse too. She was going to drag us off. So I said to Violet, Violet was in front of me on the horse, and I said, I'm going to jump off. And Violet said, you better not, you'll kill yourself. Well, I was going to be dragged off, so I couldn't see much difference, and I got both my legs on the same side of the horse, and gave a big jump. And as luck would have it, it didn't hurt me. And Violet, she grabbed the board above the door as the horse went in, and there she was, screaming and yelling and hollering, Mama, Mama. Well, I wasn't big enough to get her down.
So she was hanging from the top of the stable.
She was hanging from the top of the door that we know is where the horse went in. There she left her hanging. That's the only thing she could do, or else just be dragged off, you know. And I was running to the house to get Mom to get her down because I wasn't big enough to get her down. Couldn't reach her. And the board broke and she fell. But like I said, she got by too without getting hurt.
How many years difference between you and Mimi?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, another time too, we went to someplace for dinner, and we had been taught to thank whoever, the host or hostess, wherever we went. And Violet did most of the talking then for me. I was a little shy, I guess. And anyway, Violet said, thank you for the beans and the potatoes, and she started naming over everything, and finally she said everything that Vivian and myself ate. I remember that too. Yeah, and that's about all that I can think of right now about, one time, we didn't have water in the house, except my dad usually fixed a pump at the kitchen sink from the well, that you could pump water in the sink. And things are a lot different, today. And Mama would always put a wash boiler out underneath the gutter to catch soft water. Well water wasn't as soft as the rainwater. And we were all going someplace, and I was just a baby, I guess. And she was getting me dressed, and she'd already dressed Violet and Dad. That's my oldest brother. Harry Ellen was dead. And she said she heard somebody just laugh and was having more fun, and she dressed Violet and Dad. And she walked outside and looked, and they're sitting down in this wash boiler that Mama just caught water in. They're sitting there, just a playing, they're having more fun just after she cleaned them up. I heard Mama tell that, I remember, which I thought was kind of funny. And, well, I had started it. I just wrote everybody's name down here to tell a joke on us, you kids.
Wow.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a story about Dad?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I about forget Ariel and Carol. Well, Carol's the oldest. I'll start with her first. Then we went into the drugstore when Carol was just a little girl, and your dad, for then, was in the Pepsi business, and Violet and myself, we ordered Pepsi, of course, and the clerk looked at her, and Carol said, well, I'll just have a Coca-Cola. And the clerk looked so funny, and we did too, it was astonished. And the clerk said, you mean Pepsi-Cola, don't you, Carol? And she said, no, I have Pepsi-Cola at home.
Oh.
You don't go out and buy something.
I bet Go-Go was about to
free
spank
at
her.
home, huh?
I bet Go-Go was about to spank her.
He's right.
I bet he was about to spank her.
He wasn't with us. It's just me and Violet and
that's
Carol.
Now, Aunt Vivian, do you remember where Mimi and Go-Go, those names came from?
Where the names came from?
Yeah. The
Yes.
nicknames, Mimi and Go-Go?
Well, I'm not Go-Go. Not Go-Go. I didn't know his family very well.
No. The names, Mimi and Go-Go,
Where they came from?
didn't that come from Aunt Carol? Or Kathy?
Yeah, I think so. They just, maybe when Harry Sr. was leaving the house or something, Carol would say, go, meaning he was going someplace. But now Mimi, I don't really know where that came from. I've never heard that I know of. Harry L., he was a charmer. That's for sure. That time, Steve even told him he charmed his way through school.
How'd he charm his way through school?
They were saying he's a charmer. Well, a girl at the dealer shop told me that she said, my little girl has a case on the Harry L. And she said, every time I fix a meal, I have to set a place for Harry L.
Oh.
And she wasn't even old enough to go to school. And then I know another one that said that her mother, she kept trying to get her to go to bed for a nap. And Harry L. had at that time a little bit of yellow. You've probably seen the pictures of it. A squirt car, they called it. I mean, it had squirt written on it. And this little girl said to her mother, said, well, if I go to bed and take a nap, well, Harry, she called him Harry. She couldn't talk plain. Will a Harry L come by and take me for a ride? Yeah, her mother told me that. And
Tell us about when Harry L., when Dad was in school, he was having trouble with his math.
Oh, sure, yes. I was kind of getting aggravated with him because he wouldn't, he was doing everything but studying, and I ordered him to come over and sit down right beside of me and learn his multiplication tables.
How old was he about?
Well, you learn them in about the 3rd grade or thereabouts or something. And that's when he told me that he said, I'll just get my dress right away. He said, I'll get myself a secretary that knows them. So I teased him sometimes, asked if this secretary knows her multiplication table.
I wonder if Evelyn knows her multiple.
One time, a little boy at school, I think was getting the girl that Harry L. had his eye on. And his dad had, and he had curly hair, and I think Harry L. thought that it was his curls. I don't remember what he said to me, that he thought it was the curls. That it was helping the other little boy along, and so one time I put a wave in Harry L. His dad had some, what they called at that time, stay back. It's kind of like Vaseline. It's some kind of a salve or something that you could put on your hair to make it lay down, and I put some of that on Harry L.'s hair and pressed, a wave down, and when I took him to school, what tickled me was when he's getting out of the car, he's just holding his head so stiff, he didn't want to move his head. He's afraid his wave would fall out.
Now, speaking of hair, didn't you or Mimi color their hair at one time?
Color whose hair?
Didn't you or Mimi color their hair one time and it turned out a funny color?
No, that must have been Mimi, and I never heard that before.
I was thinking she colored her hair purple one time.
No.
Accidentally.
No.
Tell us about when Dad used to drive his squirt car around town.
When he used to drive his
little squirt cart?
Yeah, well, I was scared to death always, afraid somebody's going to back over him or something.
Did he ride around town, or where did he drive it?
Oh yeah, he'd go around town. I don't remember now what they, whether he didn't have a license. I'm sure he wasn't old enough, just a little boy. Yeah.
But why was he doing that? Because his dad was mayor or something? Was Gogo mayor at that time?
Did who what?
Was Gogo mayor at that time?
I don't know. He might have been, because he served. He served 3 terms as mayor.
Was he a good mayor?
Oh yes, definitely so. I thought. Yeah. And every time they'd go to St. Louis or something, they'd ask me, go with them, which I would, Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
And Vivian, can you tell us when?
Oh no, another time that I was out this when they lived out on North Market Street, and I was staying with them, and Harry L. and Violet. I don't mean Harry L. I mean Harry Senior. Harry Senior and Violet got home late, and it was so foggy out they didn't want me to try to drive home. So, and at that time, they only had 2 bedrooms, and one of the bedrooms, had these just little tykes. And one of the bedrooms had bunk beds, and so they wanted me to stay all night. So I Harry L. I'm getting the names mixed up. Harry L. was in the bottom bunk bed, and Carol in the top. So I wasn't about to try to crawl up there on that top bed. So, and Harry L. was always wanting somebody to sleep with him anyway. In fact, Violet would go to bed with him at night, you know, till he went to sleep. He was kind of a mama's boy, and he expected me to do when she was there. I was there and looking after him. He expected me to do it. He'd get right on your back, and you'd nearly fall to the floor when you'd be trying to get out, because you'd have to get out so easy. He'd have you around the neck, and you'd try to get out so easy that it's not to wake him up. And so this night I thought, well, I'm not going to crawl up there on that top bunk that's for sure, with Carol. So I crawled in bed with him, and I figured there'd be more room at the foot. So I slept at the foot of the bed. And the next morning, of course, I got up before he did. And the next morning I said to him, I bet you don't know who slept with you last night. And he said, yes, I do, but why did you?
Aunt Vivian, tell us again about the story about Cindy that you started.
That was Mimi. Mimi, I'm talking about your grandmother now. Yeah. And she was engaged to your family doctor at one time, you know, back years ago. And it had been talked about in your family. And this doctor is not very tall, and he's heavy set,
He's as wide as he is tall?
Pardon?
He's as wide as he is tall?
Just about. Anyway, Cindy spoke up one time, and you folks must have been discussing it, and she said she was sure glad that Mimi didn't marry Dr. Baker. Because said if she had, we'd all been short and fat and had a mustache. And I could tell about the one when she wore her mother's glasses at school. You know she wore her mother's glasses?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I knew she did. But I don't think she cared for you tell it now. It's funny, don't you think?
Yes, it is. You can tell it.
Anyway, Cindy wore her mother's glasses to school. And the teacher came around and said, Cindy, those are not your glasses, are they? And she said no, and I guess she told her that they belonged to her mother. And she told her to take them off. Well, Cindy was heartbroken. And she went home that night, and she told your mother something about she wanted to talk to her or something, and they went in the bedroom, you know, and she told her what had happened, what she'd done and everything. And Rosemary came back here the day or two later and was telling me about what Cindy had done. And she said, but don't tease her about it because she's heartbroken about it. And, well, I just buried it then. I didn't, because I wasn't going to tease her about it. But anyway, it must have been at least a month after that. I had forgotten. Your mother had told me about it, and we had a big laugh. And that was it, you know, after I wasn't going to tease her. And it must have been a month after that she and Kathy, Cindy and Kathy, came down here, and she said, Aunt Vivian, I did something so bad in school that she said I never intend to tell anyone. Kathy was standing in the room, so I knew that Kathy knew. I didn't know for sure whether I wanted to know what she'd done or not, because if it was doing something very bad, I'd feel like I needed to tell it, you know. I mean, and she displayed it. I said, you want to talk to me about it? And she came right out with it, you know, and told me that she had worn her mother's glasses to school, and the teacher told her to take them off. said, Cindy, that's not so bad. I said, something that's really bad is when you take something maybe that doesn't belong to you. And I said, I'd forget all about that because I said, the teacher puts up with things like that every day. And I said, I bet that the teacher by now has forgotten all about that. So I wouldn't worry one minute about that. I said, the teacher was right because you shouldn't have worn your mother's glasses because everybody's glasses are made, which she didn't know, see, to suit that person's eyes. And you could ruin your own, by wearing somebody else's. So, but I was amazed, that little thing was be worrying, about, well, I've heard kids committing suicide over just some little old, haven't you worried somebody
We all
that's
worried
really
about it.
conscientious?
Now we need to hear a story about Catherine Laura.
Oh, Kathy, Kathy, she called and she was crying, and she said the kids, meaning, meaning her brother, and her sisters, was calling her sissy britches.
Sissy britches.
Yeah, and I said, why, I said, well, everybody, I said, all girls have sissy britches. I said, my britches are sissy, Kathy. And I said, just ignore them. I said, if you'll ignore them, they'll leave you alone. And I said, I can come over there, but if I do, it'll make your mama mad. And, but evidently, Kathy didn't pay any attention to what I said. She still took it to heart. Because her mother told me the next day when she came by, she stopped, we had a little chat or something, and she said, she said, I got after the kids because I found out that they had called you. And she said, I told them that they could call you in an emergency, but not when there's having a family rumpus.
Not about sissy britches, though.
not about this having sissy britches. But she said, when I got home that Kathy was sitting up on top of the refrigerator.
I think I remember that one. I remember her climbing up there.
Is that right? Yeah.
I must have did it a lot.
Yeah, let's see, Carol Joe, it was, I think, when Carol was born, that, Carol Joe, Cheryl?
You forgot Cheryl.
Yeah, where have I got her written down, I guess?
That's
oh,
okay.
It's over here, yeah.
That's okay.
Cheryl comes next. Yes, she was staying here with us, and at the time my mother was in the nursing home in Benton, and the day before, she had on the cutest little dress. It was, I think, a cotton dress with a little white Peter Pan collar that came down about to her ankles. At one time, the girls wore like one of those dresses. But she looked real cute that day. And Mrs. Goss, the elder Mrs. Goss, well, I said the elder, her mother was still living, but they used to own the Goss Appliance Company. Her mother was in the nursing home, same nursing home as Mom, except on the other side. But Cheryl was rolling Mom in her chair, and she came to the door, Mrs. Goss, and asked me, she said, will you mind bringing the little girl in? I want to show, I want Mom to see how the girls are dressing now. And old Cheryl, was just a big hit. And so the next day, of course, I went over to see Mother every day. And the next day, Cheryl was going to go with us again. And after we'd finished our dishes, was in the kitchen doing the dishes, and Cheryl was getting dressed. And she walked out, and she had on a long Kelly green dress, and it was real, real tight. So tight, and it was so long, she had pulled it up and bloused it over so she wouldn't be stepping on it. and it was slit up both sides, and it had it was bright green and had a big red apple.
I
here.
was always a fashion queen.
It had a big red apple here on the side, and I said, Cheryl, you can't wear that outfit. You have to go back in the bedroom and put something else on. And Cheryl looked so disappointed. She looked up at me, and she said, I'm going to wear this outfit regardless of what you say. And
I said that?
I said, what I'm trying to say is that you're not going with us with that outfit on. And she said, well, why can't I wear this outfit? And I said, well, I can think of 3 reasons. It's much, much too long, and it's too tight on you, too. Because like I said, she brought it up and blasted over so she wouldn't be walking on it. And she did look cute, though. Yeah, she looked cute, you know, in the steady thing. And but she was, she said, I told her I had thought of 3 reasons why that she couldn't wear that. I said, it's too tight, and it's too long. And I said, in the 3rd place, I don't even know what it is, and I didn't. Well, I told her mother about it whenever she got home. And she said, do you know what that was? She said that was a bathing suit cover-up. And she said they had washed it and pulled it all out of shape. And she said, I didn't even know that Cheryl had packed it. So that was the end of that story. And
Now tell us a story on Carol Joe.
Pardon?
How about a story on Carol Joe?
On Carol Joe, she's an extra, huh?
Yep.
Well, your mother was expecting, I guess it was Carol, and Marilyn and some other girls gave a baby shower for her. At that time that it was time to open the gifts, somebody came up with the idea that he thought it would be nice for the sitter to bring you children over there because you thought you'd like to see the gifts. So they called the sitter, and she brought you all over there. Well, after the shower, Carol Joe talked Violet and myself into letting her come out here with us. And I was walking her to the car, I had hold of her hand, and all of a sudden she stopped. And she said, Aunt David, we have to go back. And I said, what for? I thought she'd forgotten something. And she said, we didn't take a shower.
She-
I kind of thought that was cute.
What about Lee?
Well, I was trying to think of one. I can't think of any really joke on him except he was one time, which one he was saying here, that he was supposed to go home and for a while. I think there's a sitter over there, and then we supposed to pick him up later. This isn't much of a joke on him. He got involved, and some of the boys were throwing rocks. I was sure telling some nice things before. What's his name? He got was playing with some other boys or something. They were throwing rocks, and somebody got their window. Some of the neighbors got the window cracked or something. So it wasn't time for us to go get him, but he called over here and he said, you come and get me and come and get me right now. He was scared. He's on the police to be out of looking for him.
He didn't want to get in trouble for the broken window.
Yeah.
What about Cara Sue?
Who?
Cara Sue?
Well, no, I couldn't think of one. You know, Cara Sue stayed a lot of the time with when the folks gone. She was just a baby, you know, and stayed a lot with Mrs. Burkle. And so, and I really, I don't, Cara Sue has only stayed here, I think, one night, best I remember. And she was with Cindy then, you know, because we had her picture taken the next day. I don't remember her staying here but one night, so I can't think of anything.
Was she on her best behavior when she spent the night, though? Was she good?
Oh, yes, she sure was. And she loved it, you know, and being with Cindy, too. It's her big sister.
Do you remember when Mimi and Gogo had the chicken hatchery or the poultry business?
What about it?
Do you remember about that?
Well, yeah, I remember this when I first met Harry. He was in the poultry business, I believe.
Was that when they were married? Did Mimi meet him and he was in that business?
Well, as far as I know, I can remember. I guess he was Mildred and Fred Hiller. You don't know him though. Fred Hiller used to have a bakery shop, and well, at one time he worked for Harry Senior. Harry Senior at one time owned the bowling alley. Hello.
And the phone rang about the poultry business a little bit.
Well, I don't know much about the poultry business, except I heard them saying that they had to get up at a certain time of the night, I think, and turn the eggs ever so often.
Mimi and Gogo did that?
Go did. It's business, the poultry business. But he finally got out of that.
Was he in the poultry business when Mimi and Gogo met?
I think so, as far as I know. And he told me, one night told me that just Violet too, that one time we was coming back from St. Louis, he pointed out a place on the side of the highway. He said that's where that I pulled over and stopped and thought about, should I take that franchise, that Pepsi franchise? And I made up my mind right then to take it. He didn't know whether it would be a mistake or whether it'd be worthwhile. But he did show us the place where he said he drove off the highway and sit there and thought about it and made up his mind.
Did he have Dad and Carol yet? Were they born yet?
I don't think so, but I don't remember for sure. The Fountain and Harry were married for about 7 years before she ever had a child.
Where was the poultry business?
She said she always left a note in her dresser drawer that if something happened to them, because they were gone and on the road so much, that every time Harry went someplace, he had one. In fact, they heard go with him. That she wanted me to have Harriel and Carol. And the reason I think, Harry had a sister, and Violet was afraid that she was younger than myself. So I was afraid that if something happened to her on the road, that his sister, Harry Senior's sister, would get the children. So I thought that was nice.
Now, when you were little, where were you born?
Where was I born? In Kingman, Kansas.
In Kansas? And how'd you guys end up in Illinois?
Well, my dad bought a mill here. He was always in the mill business. He bought a mill here someplace. Well, we lived several different places.
He bought a mill. Was it here in Marion or in Creel Springs?
So he had a mill in Creel Springs the longest time. He and his dad, but he had a stepdad. My dad had a stepdad because his father was killed in the Civil War. Died of pneumonia. They felt that they thought it was from sleeping in the trenches. And my grandma, that she just had 2 children, and the other one died in infancy. So my dad was an older child, and his name, was they called him Charlie all the time, but his name was Charlton. I've always I never liked the name Charlie, but I think Charlton is a pretty name.
It's very nice.
That and Dean's name is Charlton Dean.
Charlton Dean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you remember when they first invented like TVs and everything. Do you remember that? When getting your first TV?
Well, I remember when we got our first TV, and you didn't always get a good picture. And we invited some guests to come and sit and watch our TV, and somebody asked Dave the next day, they said something about it. And they said out there, they said something to these fellas, about how these guests that we had, how they enjoyed it, and they said they spent most of the evening looking at Mr. Rogers' rear. And he was up trying to adjust. Trying to adjust the thing to bring the picture in.
So you got your
just
first.
right.
So you got your first TV after you were married.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember about what the date was?
Excuse me, huh?
Do you remember about what the date was or what year it was?
No, not exactly. See, we got Mama one too, but so I don't remember, what we said we wanted. But the one time I was talking about was when we lived in Paducah.
Now, what did Mother Fairless do when you were little and growing up? Did she stay home and take care of you, or did she work?
Mom was a profession. Mother was a school teacher. She went to, and I can show you the picture of they used to have teachers' college in Real Springs. And that's where Mama lived, and my granddad 3 miles out of Creole. And Mama went to this college that was in Creole.
Did she
Teachers
work?
College.
Did she work as
She
a
taught
teacher?
School. Yeah, that was back when they had one-room schoolhouse. In fact, she threw a little boy out the window.
Ooh, what for?
Yeah, I've heard her tell that.
What for? What did he do?
Well, he had written a note, I guess, to his girlfriend, and Mama told him to get up and read it before the class. And he said, "I'll not do it." And she said, "You will do it, or I'll," it's a spur of the moment. She said, "You will do it, or I'll throw you out the window." And he didn't. I said he still wouldn't do it, so she picked him up and seized the britches and threw him out the window. And my mama said that he was the best boy. That she said that he came back to school the next day, and she said he was better than many people.
I
She
bet.
never had a bit more trouble with him the rest of the year.
Now, when you went to
But
school,
I was going to tell you this too that I thought was funny that Mama told about. She said that there was a little boy in the class that she said he had carrot red hair. And one day he came to school. He was wearing a bright pair of Kelly green breeches, and he came in the schoolroom at recess crying, and he said, "Miss Farrell," Mom, that's what Mama's name was, and of course she's married, said they're calling me red top and green bottom.
Oh.
Mama said she couldn't hardly keep her face straight.
Oh, poor little boy. Now, when you went to school, did you go to the one-room schoolhouse?
Oh, no, no, they had, I don't remember going to just a one-room schoolhouse. They had more rooms than that when they were started.
They had.
Well, they might have had 2 classes together. I can't remember for sure when I first started.
They might have had 2 grades mixed together.
They might have. I don't really remember for sure.
Now, when you were a little kid, you probably didn't have like movies and drive-ins and places like the kids nowadays have to go.
They didn't have drive-ins, that's for sure.
What
would
you do?
Some kind of movies but the only music that they had was somebody played the piano. They just play just up a storm, like and when when the villain was after the evil or whatever, whether it was
So it was a silent movie with just piano music?
Piano music, and the movies, of course, it's all black and white.
Hmm. When you were a kid, what kind of things did you guys like to do when you went on a date? What kind of things do kids do?
Well, I'll tell you, just, as much as anything, we go sit in the car up on the square, drink soft drinks, and watch it so you went to the show or whatever, you know. It's just, and back when we was kids, you just had to take your own toys to play with. I mean, you didn't, uh, have, but you know, I can remember one Christmas when we didn't have a present. Mama was paying, you know, for the house, and we didn't take it. We didn't think, you know, we didn't have any money, so they think now, you know, kids ought to always have a present.
What kind, how'd you celebrate Christmas when you were little?
Did what?
How did you celebrate Christmas when you were little?
String popcorn and decorate the tree and something like that.
And what kind of gifts did you usually get?
I don't remember that there's all fancy wrapped.
Yeah.
And I never had a bicycle. I never had a pair of roller skates. And I thought the other day whenever your mama was saying about Lee, you know, playing tennis with him, I'd love to have stayed after school. I love to play tennis too, and I love to play basketball. But we had to go home and start peeling potatoes for supper. That's the way it used to be, you know, that things are hard. There are hard times now.
Tell me about how all of you girls were named after flowers. Tell me your full names and where it came from.
I don't know where they came from.
That's okay.
But you know, it was Violet. Of course, that's a flower. They always have called her Violet.
Laura Violet?
I don't remember. Rosebud is what they called it.
Was it Laura Violet?
Yeah.
Laura Violet.
That was after my Aunt Laura.
After your Aunt Laura?
Yeah.
And then your name was Vivian and your middle name was Rosebud?
Rosebud. I saw a donkey in the funny paper one time that they called Rosebud, but that's about the only time I've ever. So I've got a different name. That's
Now, was anybody else named after a flower?
Pansy, Velma Pansy.
Did your mom like flowers? Is that why she named you after flowers?
What?
Did your mom like flowers? Is that why she named you after flowers?
She loved flowers, that's for sure. Yeah, she'd rather work outside in the flowers than in the house. But, yeah, she loved flowers. And it would aggravate her sometimes. The kids around, you know, with get their balls and like basketballs, you know, and things would go over into her flower bed. She didn't like that very well.
Now, when we look back at this tape years from now, Cameron and Tyler and Nicole and my kids and everybody else's kids, can you tell them about the difference, how things are nowadays compared to when you were little? Like what the houses were like and
What the cars were like.
if there was an outhouse or what kind of...
Oh yeah, we just had an outhouse. We didn't have running water. I mean, like commodes and things. In fact, that's what we had down at that's what they had down at the country club there for a while. The old country club. I'm talking about Violet and Harry. You know, had a cottage down there. I think somebody else was in with them, and I've forgotten now who it was. Down at the old country club.
And I bet all the kids didn't have their own rooms, did they?
Didn't have their own rooms.
The kids didn't have all their own rooms?
You know, they usually doubled up like 2 girls, you know, or 2 boys, something like that.
Where'd you get your water from? Was it well water or?
Yeah, in fact, they had well water down there at their old country club. You know, I guess they've got running water probably now. But, I'm talking about the old country club, not the Lake Beach.
Right. Mhm.
I like the way that Donald and Harry's country clubhouse was built. It was sort of had a cathedral ceiling, you know, and
That's
then
nice.
the bedrooms were like on a balcony, like
Mhm.
upstairs.
What about the cars? Did almost everybody have a car, or not very many people?
Not very many people. They didn't have cars or didn't have airplanes, you know, like. And out here in Parish Park, well, they call that Parish Park where our home was. I mean, on Virginia Avenue. That was kind of places where when a plane did land, it'd land out there. This is a cow pasture one time.
How did people get around if they didn't have cars? How'd they get around? Did they walk, or was it horses, or?
Well, no, most of them walked. Because we walked to high school from way out from where we first lived. When Mama bought the house, was way down on South Buchanan Street, 1110 South Buchanan Street, and we walked, and it must be a mile from town, and then we walked to the high school every day.
Mhm.
That's the junior high now, right?
Yeah, that's right. That was a junior high. I was there with you one time.
That's right.
Yeah, you ever?
Mhm. That's right.
So
Mr.
most
Grace
people,
was living then.
most people didn't have horses or anything like that. They didn't go by horses or anything.
To school? Well,
No,
that
like
was,
to go to town and to go grocery shopping and things like that.
have horses. They had kind of delivery horses. Yeah, you'd go by, maybe call on the telephone, meat market, and put your order in, and they would, and they'd deliver they'd deliver the order. I have to tell you something funny. Usually they'd walk just right in with your order. You know, they'd know that you had ordered groceries, and they'd think you'd be expecting them. And of course, they was in a hurry to make their deliveries, and the delivery boy sometimes, and would just walk right in instead of knocking and waiting. He'd walk right in and set his groceries down. And my cousin Pearl, that's the one where Violet and myself stayed the year that my dad died. We stayed there he died in January, and we stayed there till school was out. And Pearl one time brought herself a new corset, and she heard somebody coming in, and they had a pass through in their home. They had a big home on South Market Street. They had a pass through from the kitchen to the big dining room that they had. And when this grocery boy ran in, she was down there in her girdle. She wanted everybody to see if they thought it fit her just right. When the grocery boy came in, she ran and stuck her head in this pass-through. She just standing there in her girdle.
Oh no!
We kind of odd. That's Pearl Powell, you know, that her husband had owned the Powell's clothing store down on the square.
You were talking about phoning.
Picnic.
You were talking about calling.
Of course, of course.
You were talking about calling in your groceries. Did you have a phone back then?
Did we have a phone? Well, that was, yes, we had a phone, but and that was back in the days about when we were about high school age, I guess.
Was the phone different than ours today?
Oh, well, the one that my granddad's was different from that. You know, it was always up on the wall. And that you'd ring, you know, take a little thing and a little handle they had there and ring, you everybody was done. Everybody listened in.
So everybody knew what was going on.
That was the pastime.
You,
Everybody knew what was going on, and most people now, Mama, and my grandmother, she had what they called a well house, you know, that the well was all closed in. It was on kind of like a back porch. And she had a big bell that was on this back porch that had, that you pulled a rope or something, you know, to ring it. Now she was on the, she, see, if they'd ring that bell, and everybody know, they'd ring the bell, now like for the workers out in the field to come, they nearly always would eat dinner with you.
mhm.
And then they'd ring the bell when dinner was ready, so for the workers to come in and eat. But now my granddad, when he died, and that's what they used the bell for too. It was in the winter time, in January, best I remember, and he'd gone out to look after the cattle. And when he didn't show up, Grandma went to look for him, and he died of a heart attack. You know, he just slumped over in the entranceway of the barn. So then, only thing Grandma, there's just the two of them there with herself. Only thing she could do was run back to the house and grab that bell, you know, the rope to that bell and ring that bell. Well, when the neighbors, they all helped each other, you know. When the neighbors heard that bell and it wasn't lunch time, why, here they come, you know, to help out, see what's happening.
Mhm.
Know somebody. There's my grandmother, she was a small person, and my granddad, I guess he's 6 feet or more. She could have lifted him if she would have to.
Mhm.
How old were you when your dad died?
I was 9.
And how did he die?
Of a heart attack.
Heart attack?
And then I was on the town.
Mhm.
Where'd you find him?
At the mill, yeah.
the mill?
Just at the foot of the steps, so.
Mhm.
He died, and I went back, and I was just 9 years old, but I'd never seen anybody when they passed away. I went back to the house, was getting ready to move to a nicer home. I told Mama that I couldn't wake Daddy up. She knew something was wrong, you know.
Mhm. Now, how old was Mother?
I'd stayed home from school that day, look after Dean.
Mhm.
How old was Dean then?
I was 7, and then, well, he was just, I guess, probably about a year old, I don't know.
Mhm.
But he was just 2 he was 2 when my dad died.
Mhm. How old was Mother Fairless when she died?
When she died, 100.
Mhm. I knew she was at least 100. I didn't know if it was more than that.
But she was just a little over 100, but not, she hadn't reached 101.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how Mimi and Gogo met?
No, I knew they introduced them, but I don't remember how they met, you know. They's friends of Mildred and Fred Hill.
Mhm.
I mean, Harry was. Harry knew him, and Dolly knew him too. So they introduced him. And but that's about the only thing that I know.
Did you like Gogo right away? Did you like him? Did you think he was a nice guy? Good enough for your sister?
I don't guess there's anybody hardly to you that's good enough for your sisters.
That's right.
Who was it saying the other day that who else said they didn't like their boyfriend, they didn't like him, but wasn't that Carol Jones?
No telling.
I think it was Carol Jones that said that she didn't like Clint. Because he liked her sister. She said she didn't like anybody liked her sister.
Aw.
What kind of jobs did you have?
I had good jobs. I had good jobs.
What did you do?
The last, no, it wasn't the last either. Well, I worked over here at Carbondale for 9 years for the Division of Highways. I worked for 8 years under the Democrats and stayed on under the Republicans for a year. That was what your dad said there's only one thing wrong with me, and he said just 'cause I was a Democrat. And I told him he thought enough wanted to marry her, so that
That
his brother was sitting there. You couldn't deny it.
That's right.
But he always has a comeback. You know what he said?
What?
I'm not sure I've changed her yet.
Mhm.
Yeah, at one time, we went down here to vote, and Lee was with us, and Lee wanted to go in the voting booth with me, and I told him he couldn't. And I said he had to stay out there with those women that are sitting there at the table, and they could see what was going on here, what was going on, and they said, oh, that's all right, go ahead and pick him in. I said, and people had wondered, they'd see 4 legs sticking down underneath that curtain, you know, that we'd thrown the election. I told your dad that day when I got home, I told him that I took Lee, and then Lee was staying with us. I mean, when your dad got home, I told him that we took Lee to vote, and Lee went in with me, and I showed him just exactly how to vote the straight Democrat ticket.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Your grandma Purple got a kick out of that. She liked that.
Do you remember the